Have you ever stopped to wonder why so many people achieve the impossible while others remain stuck in the same difficulties? The truth is that God has infinite power capable of transforming any situation, no matter how impossible it may seem. Today, we will explore how faith in God can make the impossible a reality. If you are facing a challenge and feel like there is no way out, know that with God by your side, no obstacle cannot be overcome. If you want to discover the secret that so many people don't know, I invite you to stay until the end of this video. What you hear today could completely change your perspective on life and lead you to a spiritual transformation that few achieve. Additionally, if you feel like you need special help, leave your prayer request in the comments. We are here to pray for you and your victory. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this message so more people can be blessed and experience God's power in their lives. The constant presence of God. Life is full of highs and lows, moments of joy and others of great challenge. During difficult times, many people feel they are alone, but it is precisely in these moments that God makes His presence more clearly felt. God's presence is not dependent on circumstances or how well things are going. He is always there, whether in the silence of dark nights or the confusion of hectic days. Trusting in His constant presence can be the anchor that a person needs to keep moving forward, even when everything seems lost. Faith in God is not limited to good times. It strengthens in adversity. In moments when life's problems seem overwhelming, it's easy to feel abandoned, but this couldn't be further from the truth. God's presence is constant, and He works silently, moving in ways that may not be immediately perceptible. Imagine someone walking on a deserted beach, where each footprint represents the steps of their life. When storms come, it may seem like you're walking alone, but it is precisely in those moments that God carries the person in His arms. Often, divine intervention happens in subtle ways that are only understood later. It is in times of crisis that you can fully perceive God's power. Many who have gone through great difficulties report feeling an inexplicable peace amid chaos, a sense that everything will be fine despite all contrary evidence. This peace doesn't come from the world but from a divine trust that surpasses human logic. When you trust in God, even the impossible becomes possible, for He can transform the darkest scenario into a testimony of overcoming. This trust, which may seem blind at first, is actually the strength that leads to victory through faith. God's help manifests in various ways. It could be an unexpected opportunity, wise advice from a friend, or even the internal strength not to give up. Each of these moments is an expression of divine intervention, showing that God is by your side, working silently to ensure that you have everything you need to overcome any adversity. Those who understand this begin to live with greater serenity, knowing that although the problems are real, God's presence is even more powerful. No matter the size of the obstacle, God is greater. A practical example of how God's constant presence manifests is through the silent support He offers through other people. Have you ever noticed how, during the most difficult moments, someone appears with a word of comfort or unexpected help? This is no coincidence. God uses people to act in our lives, often without us realizing it. Simply trusting that He is always present changes how we face daily challenges. When you accept that God walks with you, any battle becomes lighter. Understanding that God is always present transforms how we approach life. When you live with the awareness that you're not alone, the weight of worries lessens. This doesn't mean the problems disappear, but rather the way of facing them changes radically. God's constant presence is the guarantee that amid any difficulty, A greater purpose is at work. Even when answers are not immediate or when victory takes time, the certainty that God is by your side is the greatest source of peace one can have. Now that we understand the impact of God's presence, let's reflect on how faith in His wisdom can guide us even in the most uncertain situations. Faith above doubt. Life is full of situations beyond our control, moments when plans that seemed perfect begin to crumble. At such times, doubt often invades the heart, causing people to question whether they are on the right path. However, it is precisely at this point that faith in God becomes essential. Having faith doesn't mean there will never be doubts, but rather that despite them, trust in God remains firm. Divine trust is the foundation that allows one to move forward, even when everything seems to say it's impossible. Overcoming any obstacle begins with the firm decision to believe, even in the face of uncertainties. Many believe that faith in God is only valid when things are going well, but the true power of faith is revealed in times of difficulty. When plans fail or dreams seem unattainable, it is faith that keeps a person on the right path. It's important to remember that God often has a greater purpose for our lives, and what seems like a defeat may actually be divine intervention to protect us from something we cannot see. Trusting in God's purpose is essential to navigating difficult moments with serenity, knowing that even when everything seems wrong, God remains in control. A practical example of this is when someone loses a job opportunity that seemed ideal. Initially, it can be devastating, and doubt about the future sets in. But over time, many people realize that this loss made way for something much greater, a growth opportunity they hadn't even imagined. Trusting in God, even when the door closes, is what allows one to see that the best is yet to come. The impossible becomes possible precisely when a person remains steadfast in their faith, believing that God's plan is perfect, even when we cannot understand it. Doubts are part of the human experience, but it's the response to those doubts that defines how willing a person is to trust in God's power. Instead of being carried away by uncertainty, it's necessary to remember that God never abandons. Divine intervention may not happen as expected, but it always occurs at the right time. Faith in God doesn't require immediate proof, but rather the certainty that He is working miracles in silence, turning each difficulty into a stepping stone toward victory through faith. Every challenge overcome is proof of how trusting in God makes all the difference. This can be seen in the stories of biblical characters who faced impossible situations but continued to trust in God. Think of Abraham, who was called to sacrifice his own son but maintained his faith. He didn't know how things would turn out, but he trusted in God's plan. This is a clear example of how faith above doubt is the path to true spiritual transformation. God's power manifests in those who, even amid doubt, continue to believe that He is in command. No matter how unsettling doubt may be, it should never be stronger than faith. Every time doubt arises, it's an opportunity to reaffirm trust in God and remember that He never fails. When you have this certainty in your heart, the impossible becomes achievable. The journey may be long and full of obstacles, but those who keep their faith above any doubt end up reaping the rewards of their perseverance. Now that we understand the role of faith amid uncertainties, we can reflect on God's wisdom and how it reveals itself in His perfect plan for our lives. The wisdom and plan of God. There are moments in life when everything seems out of control. Carefully laid plans start to fall apart, and a feeling that something is wrong takes over the heart. In these moments, it may seem like God is distant, but the opposite is true. Divine wisdom goes far beyond what the human mind can comprehend. He has a plan for each of us, even when we cannot clearly see it. Trust in God's power reminds us that He sees the full picture, while we only see fragments. And it is with this divine vision that He guides us, even when the path seems uncertain. When something doesn't go right, it's easy to feel frustrated and wonder why. However, God knows our hearts and understands what is best for us. Sometimes what we desire so much doesn't happen because it is not aligned with God's purpose for our lives. In His infinite wisdom, He protects us from situations that could lead us astray from the path He has prepared. Divine trust is a complete surrender to God's plan, accepting that even when the answers are delayed, He is in control of everything. Overcoming every obstacle becomes possible when we fully trust that what God desires for us is the best. A practical example of this divine wisdom is when someone faces a period of financial difficulty. At first glance, this situation might seem unfair, or it may appear that there is no solution. However, many times, this difficulty serves as a means to shape the person, teaching valuable lessons about management, patience, and perseverance. Over time, this person may realize that the season of scarcity prepared them for an even greater blessing in the future. Spiritual transformation occurs when we recognize that God acts even in the most challenging moments, strengthening us for future victories. God sees far beyond what we are capable of imagining. His wisdom is infinite, and He works silently, constructing a future that aligns with His purpose for each of us. When this is understood, anxiety about the future diminishes. Trust in God's plan brings peace, even when circumstances are difficult. Knowing that He has a perfect plan that goes beyond human comprehension allows us to face challenges with serenity and faith. When we trust in God's wisdom, we open ourselves to miracles that once seemed impossible. Another powerful example is that of Joseph, who was sold by his own brothers, unjustly accused, and imprisoned. From a human perspective, his life seemed to be a series of tragedies. However, God was shaping Joseph for something greater, and at the right time, he was placed in a position of authority in Egypt, saving thousands of people from famine. This is a clear example that, although God's plan may often be incomprehensible, it always brings about a greater purpose. Divine intervention manifests when we least expect it, revealing God's power in our lives in surprising ways. Those who trust in God's wisdom experience a spiritual transformation that goes beyond human understanding. They begin to live with a serenity that transcends circumstances, knowing that no matter how difficult the journey, God is guiding every step. This trust not only strengthens faith but also opens the door to the impossible being realized. Now that we understand God's wisdom, let's reflect on how He gives us strength to overcome any challenge we face in our journey. God gives strength. Life is a constant battle, and often the challenges that arise may seem insurmountable. It is in these moments that the strength that comes from God is revealed as the greatest of blessings. When obstacles seem bigger than human strength, God's Word becomes the lamp that guides us through the darkness. He offers clarity and courage, even in the most difficult situations. Divine trust is like a beacon in the midst of a storm, ensuring that no matter how much the waves toss, there will be a safe path to follow. Overcoming challenges is only possible because God empowers us, even when we think we have no more strength. In moments of greatest fragility, it's natural to feel like there is no energy left to continue. Life's pressures can be so overwhelming that the only desire is to give up. However, it is in these moments of weakness that God's power manifests itself most evidently. He renews the strength of those who trust in Him, giving them the encouragement to face even the greatest adversities. God's strength is not just physical. It is spiritual and emotional, enabling each person to face their daily battles with courage and determination. When you believe in God's power, even the impossible becomes achievable. A practical example of this is when someone is going through an illness that seems incurable. The body is tired, the mind is overwhelmed, and the future seems uncertain. However, many testify that in these moments they felt an inexplicable inner strength, something that made them continue fighting even when all the evidence pointed to the contrary. This strength does not come from within but from above, as divine intervention to show that God is by the side of those who fight, ensuring that their victory through faith is on the way. God's power works where human strength runs out. God's strength also manifests through His Word, which serves as a guide in moments of confusion. For those who are lost, not knowing what to do or how to move forward, the Bible offers counsel and direction. When someone feels incapable of continuing, meditating on the Scriptures can bring the clarity needed to take the next step. Verses like, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" are powerful reminders that we are not alone and that God always strengthens us to face any challenge that arises in our path. In addition to giving us the strength to face challenges, God also teaches us that this strength is not just for ourselves but to be shared. Helping others in their battles is a way of manifesting God's power in our lives. When we offer a word of support, a gesture of solidarity, or even a simple hug, we are transmitting the strength that God has given us. Often, divine intervention happens through people who have been strengthened by God and can now be a source of strength for others. Life will never be free of challenges, but the difference lies in how we face them. When we trust that God gives us strength, no obstacle is big enough to defeat us. He is always by our side, renewing our energy and guiding us through difficulties. This certainty brings an inner peace that allows us to face any battle with confidence. Now that we understand how God strengthens us, let's reflect on the depth of divine love that remains constant, even when we make mistakes along the way. The infinite love of God. God's love is a constant in our lives, regardless of circumstances or the mistakes we may make. Along the journey, it is common to fail, make poor decisions, and sometimes stray from His path. However, God's love remains unwavering. He welcomes us back, no matter how far we have wandered. This love is not dependent on what we do or fail to do. It is an expression of God's very being. For many, it is hard to grasp the depth of this love, especially when they feel unworthy, but the truth is that divine love is always present, ready to transform us. In moments of despair, when everything seems lost, it is this love that rescues. God does not merely observe our pain. He feels each one of them as if they were His own. His love is so vast that He is always willing to lift us up, no matter the fall. When someone experiences this love, they realize they are not fighting alone. Divine trust arises from understanding that even in the darkest moments, God is there, supporting and sustaining. The impossible often begins with a simple acceptance that we are loved by God, despite all our imperfections. A practical example of this infinite love can be seen in stories of reconciliation and forgiveness. Many families are torn apart by grudges, resentments, and mistakes made over time. But when people allow God's love into their lives, miracles happen. Relationships are restored, wounds are healed, and the impossible becomes possible. God's love operates in all areas of life, not only in spiritual matters but also in emotional and physical ones. Those who accept this love experience a spiritual transformation that impacts every aspect of their existence. God's love is like a refuge amid life's storms. No matter how much someone has erred, God never turns away. His love is constant, welcoming, and transformative. He calls us back to His arms, not with judgment but with compassion and grace. Many people live with a huge weight of guilt and shame for past decisions, but the truth is that with God, there is always a new chance. His infinite love is the guarantee that it is never too late to start again. He offers a path to redemption and victory through faith, even for those who think there is no more hope. Additionally, God's love manifests itself in the small daily blessings. Many times, we are so focused on the big challenges we face that we forget to notice the small signs of divine care and love around us. Whether it's an unexpected encounter with a friend, a kind gesture from a stranger, or a moment of peace amid chaos, these are constant reminders that God is present, demonstrating His love in subtle but powerful ways. Recognizing these manifestations helps us live with more gratitude and trust in God's power. By understanding the depth of God's love, we are transformed. This love teaches us to forgive, be more compassionate, and always seek reconciliation. It is the foundation for true change in our lives. When we accept that God loves us unconditionally, we begin to live more lightly, knowing that no matter what happens, we will always be supported by His arms. Now that we've reflected on the power of divine love, let's explore the importance of recognizing and practicing gratitude in our daily lives. The importance of gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most transformative attitudes a person can adopt in life. When you cultivate gratitude, you open yourself to a completely different perspective on the difficulties and blessings that appear along the way. Being grateful doesn't mean ignoring problems, but recognizing that even amid difficulties, there is always something to be thankful for. God teaches us that gratitude is a reflection of our trust in Him and His plan. When someone thanks God, regardless of the situation, they demonstrate an unwavering faith in the divine purpose. It's a way of saying, I trust that, even though I don't understand right now, everything has a reason. Many people live constantly focused on their problems, which prevents them from noticing the good around them. The practice of gratitude changes this. Instead of focusing on failures or what is lacking, a grateful heart begins to see the miracles that happen every day. A simple act of waking up each day with health, the opportunity to learn something new, or even the chance to start over are examples of God's power at work in our lives. Gratitude opens the door to spiritual transformation because it brings us closer to God, acknowledging that everything we have comes from Him. A practical example of the importance of gratitude can be seen in the lives of those who go through severe adversities but choose to thank God even in the worst circumstances. People who face serious illnesses, financial losses, or family challenges often report that when they chose to be grateful, they felt an inexplicable peace and a new perspective on their battles. Divine trust grows when you thank God for everything, even for the challenges, because it demonstrates complete surrender to His plan. This attitude of gratitude allows the impossible to be realized, for a grateful heart is always prepared to receive more from God. Gratitude also allows us to see God's purpose in every detail of life. Often, we are so wrapped up in our daily struggles that we forget to be thankful for the small victories that occur along the way. When you adopt an attitude of gratitude, you can see God's power in every little thing. An unexpected encounter that brings a solution, an opportunity that arises from the least expected place, or even a simple moment of tranquility in the midst of a hectic day. All these are signs of divine intervention in our lives, and being grateful for them helps us realize just how present and active God is. Furthermore, gratitude has a multiplying effect. When someone is grateful, this attitude reflects in their actions and in how they deal with the people around them. A grateful heart is more generous, more patient, and more willing to help others. Those who recognize the blessings they receive from God naturally want to share that love and gratitude with others. This creates a positive cycle, where more blessings are attracted because God sees a heart that values what it already possesses. Gratitude, therefore, not only transforms individual lives but also impacts the lives of those around, spreading God's love and power. Finally, gratitude strengthens faith. When you thank God for what He has already done, the trust in what He will still do increases. Those who live in gratitude know that God is faithful and that, in due time, all His promises will be fulfilled. Living with this certainty brings peace and security, even in times of uncertainty. Now that we understand the power of gratitude, let's reflect on the patience required during waiting and how God teaches us to trust in His timing, knowing that blessings will come at the perfect moment. Patience in waiting. Patience is an essential virtue in a relationship with God. Often, in the rush for quick answers and immediate results, we forget that God's timing is not the same as ours. Waiting, no matter how difficult, is part of the divine plan to shape us and prepare us for something greater. When God makes us wait, it's not because He has forgotten us, but because He is working on something special that will only be revealed at the right time. Divine trust is what sustains a person during the waiting period, for knowing that God has a greater purpose for every delay brings peace and serenity. Waiting can be painful, especially when facing difficult situations and yearning for an immediate solution. However, it's important to remember that during this time, God is shaping our character and strengthening our faith. Overcoming challenges often depends on our ability to wait with patience and faith in God. When you fully trust in the divine plan, you can understand that every minute of waiting is preparing you for something bigger, something you may not yet be ready to receive. Patience then becomes a tool for spiritual growth. A practical example of this is when someone is praying for a job, healing, or a life change, and the answer seems delayed. It can be frustrating, and the desire to give up is strong. But when one remains firm in faith, trusting that God is in control, the result that comes at the right time is far better than what could have been imagined. Divine intervention happens at the perfect moment, when we are ready to receive the blessings God has prepared for us. The impossible often becomes reality after a long wait, showing that God is never late but always acts at the right time. Waiting on the Lord is a lesson in trust and surrender. When you understand that God is in control, the wait ceases to be seen as a trial and becomes a time of preparation. During this period, He teaches us patience, resilience, and humility. Spiritual transformation occurs because in waiting, we learn to depend entirely on God, abandoning the control we think we have over circumstances. This brings us closer to God and strengthens our faith, for we learn to trust Him more deeply. Patience also helps us better appreciate the blessings when they finally arrive. Those who wait with faith understand that when God's answer comes, it brings with it more than just a solution to the problem. It also brings growth, maturity, and a new perspective on life. Often, what seemed impossible becomes reality, and the gratitude for having waited on God's timing completely transforms how we face future challenges. Trust in God solidifies with each experience, and this prepares us for even greater victories through faith. Patience in waiting is an act of faith and love. It's recognizing that God knows what's best for us and that, in His time, He will bring what we have been waiting for. In the meantime, it's important to remember that He is with us every step of the way, strengthening and guiding us. Now that we understand the importance of patience and how it transforms us, let's reflect on what happens when we finally surrender our worries and allow God to take full control of our lives. Now that you've reached the end, it's time to put all this wisdom into practice. Spiritual transformation begins when you make the decision to trust fully in God, even in the face of the impossible. Are you ready to let God work in your life? What is holding you back from taking that step of faith and believing in the miracle He has prepared for you? Don't let doubts paralyze you. It's in the moment when you surrender control to God that the greatest victories occur. If this content touched your heart in any way, write in the comments, expressing your gratitude or leaving your prayer request. We are ready to pray for you and help you on this journey of faith. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to keep receiving messages that will strengthen your faith and guide you along God's path. Remember, with God, everything is possible. Your victory is already on its way.